Well, hello friends. Welcome to the SerenityOS update for May 2021. Now, I usually start these videos by talking about sponsorship and how you can support my work, but this month I am super happy to report that thanks to the amazing support I'm getting from the community around SerenityOS, I am able to quit my job and focus full-time on Serenity from now on. Which is super exciting. So you can read more about that on my blog, which I've linked in the video description below. And to everybody who is supporting me in some way, thank you so much. This is a dream come true, and there are just so many feelings, and they're all good. And there's also a ton of new people here this month, so welcome to all of you. I am really glad that you're all here, and I hope you will find something interesting. What you're watching right now is a monthly update video. I've been putting these out at the end of every month for the last 2 years. And let's just jump into another one and talk about May. So the project has been progressing at breakneck pace, as usual, now with over 20 pull requests being merged every single day. And to help with the increasing pressure, I've also now appointed longtime developer Ali Muhammadpur to be a project reviewer as well. So Ali joins me and Linus in managing the pull request queue and reviewing code, merging it. And so far it's been going really well, and I'm really happy with both Ali and Linus joining me in this. So very, very cool stuff. Anyway, let's look at some stuff in the system. So where do we start? I guess we can start with display settings. So this month I've given the display settings dialog a facelift, redone the UI, and added some more tabs for changing the system font, and also moved the monitor configuration to a separate tab as well. So now if we wanted to switch to a different wallpaper like soap bubbles, you have these nice little previews here, which is pretty cool. And of course you can preview different tiling modes and stuff like that. But I was always a big fan of Prairie Wind when I was using Windows NT4 back in the day. I used to use this wallpaper, so let's use this one today. So let's look at something else that's pretty cool. So in the last monthly update video, I struggled a little bit with not realizing that I had forgotten to save a file. So this month I worked on improving sort of the visual clues that are given about the state of an open document. So now, as you can see, this document here is modified, and I have a star here to indicate that. And I also have a new icon for the close button with 3 dots underneath, or an ellipsis, which sort of builds on the design language of ... meaning that, hey, if you click this thing, you're going to have to do something more before we can complete the action, right? So if I undo, it goes back to the normal state, a redo goes back to modified. So it's just sort of a nice way to indicate visually that something has changed. And of course, if I try to close it, it will ask. So that's something that I worked on. And I guess we can just look at some random GUI things. So in File Manager, very subtle change, but look over here at this splitter. You can see there's a little bit of knurling in the middle. Previously, there was no way to tell visually which parts of an interface were resizable. So I've added this little ... dotted knurling there, and it builds on the same visual metaphor as the resize corner. So the idea is to indicate grabbability or resizability with that knurling pattern. And I think it works pretty well. So let's see, let's look at some new apps that are in. So we have, so Gunnar did a Mandelbrot fractal demo. And of course we all indulged him because he was really excited about it. But I think it turned out pretty good. And what else did we get? We got some new games. So we have a Game of Life. This one was done by Andres, I think. And we previously had a very, very bare bones Game of Life called Conway. But now we have updated or upgraded that with a more sophisticated implementation. And I'm not much of a Game of Lifer, so I can't really say much about it, but I know a lot of people really enjoy it. So now we have an upgraded variant. And another game we also got this month was Hearts, which Gunnar has implemented. And I must admit, I have spent a few hours playing Hearts since he did this. So it's the classic game that we all remember wasting time on, at least if you are as old as I am. And very nice work by Gunnar. And also, he's been doing a lot of work on the AI, but I still feel like I'm smarter than the AI. It would be nice to have at least one game in Serenity that that feels smarter than me. It shouldn't be that hard. Anyway. Maybe I should make a feature request. Okay, and let's look at some graphics. So something that's new this month, which is really sweet, is we have a software implementation of OpenGL 1. So Jesse and Stefan started working on libgl, which is a software rasterized implementation of OpenGL for Serenity. And this is, of course, the iconic teapot model being rendered here. And this is all software. There's no hardware acceleration here. But I think this is a very interesting thing to add to the system because it sort of opens up new ways of programming that were not available to us before. And just because we don't have acceleration for everything doesn't mean we can't start thinking in a sort of a three-dimensional way about graphics. And it's with an API like OpenGL, of course, we can plug it into acceleration down the road once we have something like that. So super awesome work by Jesse and Stefan and everybody else who contributed to it as well. And it's definitely far from finished, but it does look pretty funky. And some other random things. I worked a bit on Image Viewer this month. So Image Viewer now, let's see if we have some, where can we get some images? Res graphics, I guess. Oh, oopsie doopsie. Went a little too far. So let's just grab a picture here. So Image Viewer will now open images in a separate process. So we sandbox the image decoding, which has very nice security properties because if you download an image that has some malicious thing in it, then just because you open it in the Image Viewer no longer means that it can take over the whole Image Viewer process, which has access to your files and stuff, but rather if there's a bug in the image decoders and a malicious file manages to compromise the decoder, it's still sandboxed. So that's something I think it turned out quite easy to implement because of our image decoding service that we already have. So I'm really pleased with how easy that was. And let's see. So if we go to utilities, let's look at the magnifier utility. Was added this month by Valtteri. So this one I am particularly fond of. It's basically what it looks like. It's just a magnifier glass that follows the cursor. And this is super helpful when you are trying to do sort of pixel alignment stuff or trying to do pixel perfect UI layouts. It's so nice to be able to just zoom in and see stuff like this. And you can actually zoom in even further if you want. I really, really appreciate having this tool. So huge thanks to Valtteri for implementing that. And I think it turned out really clean as well, which is awesome. And I know Valtteri was worried about performance, but just look at it go. No performance problems here. Just nice. Very, very cool. Anyway, also in the utilities category, we have an analog clock, which was implemented by Ireland. And I think it actually follows the system theme. So if you switch to different themes, it will be painted based on the color scheme of your current windowing theme. Also, check out those cool buttons here. Ooh, I forget who added those. I think maybe it was Brendan. Whoever added those cool windowing buttons to Silver, thank you. Let's go back to the default theme. Right. And there are just so many so many GUI things to look at. But okay, let's just look at one more. So this month I did a UI overhaul of the Pixel Paint bitmap editing application. So if you've used it before, you remember it used to look pretty dang clunky. It now has a nice toolbar here and all new icons for all of the tools and everything. And it's just, I just really like looking at it now because it used to be kind of an eyesore and now it looks pretty good. It reminds me of Paint Shop Pro back in the day. If anybody used that, that was a real nice app for painting. And yeah, it's good to get back to Pixel Paint, and I have a lot of things I want to do with this app. So, and also now I have a lot of time, so that should be should be good. Okay, so let's see. Let's talk about something architectural, maybe. So we now have the beginnings of PDF support in the system. So if we open a PDF here, this is a PDF viewer application that uses libpdf, and libpdf is a new library for parsing and rendering PDF documents. It was implemented by Matt, so huge thanks to Matt for working on this. And look at it zoom. Very, very awesome. And I'm really, it's always fun to see things built into the system that leverage and make use of existing components so nicely. And I think this really synergizes well with our existing graphics stack because it sort of exposes weaknesses that have to be improved, and just everybody wins from that. So I really love this. And of course, there's a lot of work to do on libpdf, but it is awesome that we're started. And then I guess I should also mention that the Solitaire game has also have been given some love this month by Tim, who added a bunch of features like 3-card draw and like the status bar down here, and I think he added like Klondike scoring system and all kinds of refinements. And it's pretty obvious that Tim enjoys playing Solitaire, so it is fun to see somebody who really likes a game pick it up and refine it in the system. So thank you, Tim, for working on that. Okay, so then I guess we can talk a bit about the browser. So there's been a lot of work on the browser this month. The first thing I guess I want to mention is we now have a WebAssembly implementation. It's still early days, but Ali has gone and implemented a huge part of a spec-compliant WebAssembly virtual machine. And this Mandelbrot fractal here rendered in less than a second by WebAssembly. And it is pretty cool. So there's a libwasm, which is a standalone library that implements WebAssembly. And then he's also added bindings to the JavaScript engine so that it can be used in the browser. Very, very cool stuff. And there's also been a ton of work on the browser, like spec compliance. Like the usual suspects like Linus and Luke have been doing a ton of stuff. And also some new people have been stepping in, like Tobias. Tobias worked on border radius and CSS custom properties and other things I forget. And there was Adam who did, I think, a bunch of table things. And there were more people who worked on it, like Vladislav and Yegor, and I don't remember everybody. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting people, but there's been a lot of great stuff. So what we're looking at here is Acid 1, the less famous predecessor of Acid 2, and we've seen some nice progressions on Acid 1 this month, so that's very cool. I think it was Tim who made the backgrounds render correctly. And of course, Acid 2 keeps progressing as well. It's still not quite the happy smiley face that we want it to be, but it is inching closer little by little. So that's pretty cool. And also, honorable mention is Max implemented text encoding detection. So the HTML parser spec has this complex algorithm that tells you how to figure out which text encoding is in use. And Max went and implemented that for our parser. So it should now be much better at recognizing like content in other languages, other text encodings, and figuring out what to do with that. And of course, like everything, we're far from perfect, but we are improving, which is fantastic. So I guess I can also mention about the browser that I've done some architectural work on the browser this month, simplifying some of the security architecture. So it's still very much a multi-process thing. If we sort by PID here, we still have 4 processes that make up this browsing session: the browser, the web content, the request server, and the image decoder. But the main thing that's different now is that they all run as the same user. So they used to have a unique user ID per process, but I realized that it was possible to get all of the protection that we wanted through sandboxing, because we can sandbox these things so hard that the user ID doesn't matter anymore. So now we take that approach instead, which allows us to get rid of all of the extra user accounts. And all of those user accounts were making debugging very confusing. So I'm really pleased with this change, even though it's kind of an invisible one. It was very satisfying. Oh, and also, I don't want to forget that we now have syntax highlighting for HTML. So this was implemented by Ali. It's just a basic syntax highlighter based on the parser. And, oh, right, and it does have a bug that tag names with a single character, like B, P, A, and such, they don't get highlighted. So we should probably look into that. I think there's a bug open. But it is awesome that that there's now work ongoing on HTML syntax highlighting. We still need to plug in JS and CSS support, though. Anyway, then, let's look at the profiler. So let's grab a system-wide profile. So we'll profile everything, maybe start the browser, go to the SerenityOS website, and let's stop profiling there. So, okay, that something went wrong with that. Let's try to record a new profile then. Okay, well, at least we got one. It's a little bit flaky sometimes. So a lot of work has happened on the profiler this month. And we now have these timelines here are divided per process. So you can see every process that was captured, and this timeline is scalable. So you can zoom in and out with the control mouse wheel. You can select individual processes, and that will limit the call tree below here to only those processes. So you can look at a specific cohort of processes, for example. Look at the browser and web content here. And we also now filter per process down here. So every process gets his own top level node. So I did a lot of work on this, and Gunnar did a lot of awesome work as well. And it's just been really cool seeing all the new functionality in the profiling system come in. Gunnar has also added a bunch of other profiling events, like I forget what they are, like kernel allocations, what are they? Samples, context switches, page faults, kmalloc, and kfree. So you can actually capture these things as well if you're interested in seeing all the page faults, for example. So very, very nifty. And here you can also see the little knurling that indicates that this is resizable. Previously, you had to know that this part of the UI was resizable. Now you got that little clue there. That was actually my original motivation, was how nobody could see that this thing was resizable. So it turned out pretty good. Okay, so what else do I want to talk about? I guess, speaking of Gunnar, he did some really, he's done a lot of things, but some of the awesome stuff he worked on this month was malloc optimization. So malloc now lazily builds the free list for new blocks, which means that we don't fault in whole new blocks when you malloc. Rather, they are incrementally and lazily constructed, the free lists. So in practice, that just means that malloc is usually faster the first time you call it, and might use less memory. And I went and I implemented the same optimization for the JavaScript engine. So I did some interesting optimizations on the JS engine, actually. And the test.js test suite used to take about a second to complete, and now it's, closer to half a second, which is really, really cool. And a large part of that was related to how we allocate and reuse memory blocks instead of giving them back to the kernel. So very much inspired by Gunnar's work on libcmalloc. Okay, so then I guess, let me show you something in Hack Studio. I don't have build system installed, but I should still be able to show this off. So we now have include statement autocompletion, which was implemented by Itamar, although it doesn't scroll with me when I arrow down there. That's not good. But this is pretty cool, though, that you can autocomplete include statements like that. So shout outs to Itamar. And Itamar continues working on the C++ parsing and comprehension support. And it's really fun to see how a more and more competent C++ comprehension engine is taking shape. So very cool stuff. Some other things, random things. There was some really awesome performance work on the big int implementation in libcrypto. So Dex has been working on some improvements to the algorithms so that we can do calculations with big integers better. And they also use less memory now, which should open up the ability to implement some new ciphers, perhaps. And another user space thing is we now have MDNS support, or multicast DNS. Sergey has implemented that. So I wonder if I can do that from here. Yes, I can. I can ping my host machine by its .local name, which is pretty cool. So thank you, Sergey, for working on that. And he also had to implement multicast, IP multicast in the kernel to support that. Very, very cool. We also have a file utility now. So let's see, app text editor, perhaps. This was done by Valtteri. So it's does what you expect. Like, it tries to figure out what some file is and then tells you a little bit about it. Very, very cool. And we're in the terminal. The terminal has had a lot of work this month by Daniel, who did a new escape sequence parser. So we now have a state machine generator that takes a state diagram and builds a parser from that. Previously, the terminal escape sequence parser was hand-rolled and not very maintainable. So it's very cool to have a code generator that works from a known good state diagram to build a parser. So that's pretty sweet. And something I also really love, I don't have it compiled here, but I love it, is we now have oopsan support in user space. So undefined behavior sanitizer, which means that we can build a system with oopsan embedded into all of user space. Previously, we only had kernel oopsan. So now we can learn about undefined behavior in all of user space, thanks to Andrew, who added that, and Garrett, who started the work, and then Andrew took over and actually got it merged. So it's very cool. We found a lot of interesting bugs with oopsan already, so I'm really happy we have it. And let me show you something totally weird. Bloop. This is the new frame buffer console, which is new in the kernel this month. So Liav has started building out a new graphics subsystem in the kernel, which allows us to do crazy things like switch to a frame buffer console and then switch back to the desktop. And previously you were either in desktop mode or kernel text mode, but there was no combining them really. And now you can just jump between them with Alt-1 and Alt-2 very easily. That's super cool. And the graphics system stuff in the kernel looks pretty promising, I have to say. Like, I like where it's going, so definitely look forward to seeing more stuff there. Other kernel stuff, Brian has done a lot of great work on hardening the kernel against out-of-memory problems, and it continues to be a big issue in the kernel because a lot of the code is written in a way that assumes that memory allocation will not fail, and we've started the process of like, actually maybe it can fail, and let's deal with that. And it's a long and tedious process, and Brian has been doing a ton of great work on that. So thank you very much, Brian. A random thing that happened in the kernel. Let me see if I have sysctl. We now have caps lock to control as a sysctl, so you can remap caps lock to be control. This is not a feature I use myself, but I know a lot of people love it. And it was added by Spencer, so thank you, Spencer. You can just sysctl that to 1 if you want to use it. I'm not going to do it here because I will get confused. I'm running out of things to talk about. Last mention is Gunnar has also done a lot of awesome work on TCP and IP performance, and it was a real epic yak shave, really, because I think he just wanted TCP downloads to be fast, or web downloads, and he ended up on this crusade of just trying to get rid of allocations that were happening during context switching and like all kinds of missing stuff in the TCP implementation. And it's just been a delight seeing patch by patch come in, and the TCP throughput numbers just keep going up with every change. So that's super awesome. And there's still stuff to do, but I think it's very nice. Anyway, I think that's everything I wanted to show today or mention. But there have been over 1,700 changes in the last month, so I definitely don't have time for everything. But I think we covered a lot of interesting stuff. So thank you all so much for checking in and staying up to date with the system. If you want to come and chat with us, you can join the Discord server. There's a link in the description. And I am just going to say one more time, thank you all so much for your support and for your interest. I am so excited about this new phase in my life, I guess, and it will be very interesting to see what we can do with this. So thank you, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.